So this is video 5 of the Blender 2.80 course, and this is handling how to add objects. In Blender, um, all objects that you add are separate items, and they will be listed here on the top right hand corner in the object um, list. And you have many ways of adding objects to the scene. First of all, you have the add button here. And in here you can see all kinds of things that you can add: curves, surfaces, meshes, metaballs, text, grease pencils. Armature are riggings, they are like bones for your animated objects. And there are lights, light probes, cameras, speakers, whatever, force fields, all kinds of things, bits and pieces. The common thing with them is that they all appear here wherever the 3D cursor happens to be. So if you place the 3D cursor here, the objects will appear here. And if you snap your cursor to the world origin, the objects will appear there. There's also a shortcut key, Shift A, which gives you the same list of stuff that you can add as the add menu does from here. So it's just basically the same thing. I'm very used to hitting the Shift A. So let me just add a plane, scale it up 100 times to have a nice base. I'm going to add more objects, and then I will add a cube. As you can see, it is always the origin that appears here on the 3D cursor. So if I add a circle, it will appear slap on the XY plane that we have here. But if I move it up, you can see that it is actually a circle. Also, if I add a monkey, it appears down there because half of it is below the origin and half of it is above the origin. Now, there's in the object mode, you can add whatever you like, but if you go into edit mode by tabbing, the object list that you can add is different. That's because whatever you now add, let's say you add a cube, it is actually part of the monkey object. So if you try to grab just a cube, you can't, and you can't grab just Suzanne because they are paired, they're one object. Even here you see Suzanne. You can add as many objects as you like to your mesh, to the initial mesh, but it usually becomes a problem if you add stuff in edit mode. Even here it's rather hard to get back to the situation where you had just Suzanne and not like both of them. If I have the easiest way to do that is to select one vertex and then Control plus until you have all of them selected, and then move them in the X direction, and then you can delete them as faces go. So that is one thing. If you look at the list of things, the most important things are of course the meshes, because these are starting points for whatever you want to make. Curves are very useful if you want to use curves for some reason. There's another tutorial on this called background images and curves, and I will be talking more about curves there. Surfaces are also curve-based things. Metaballs, I have no idea what they are. Text is useful because when you add a text, you can edit the text. For example, I love Blender. I wish I knew how to type Blender. And once it is added, you can You can extrude it in the geometry, and then you can rotate it on the x-axis, rotate it on the z-axis, like so. Actually, it would be nice if I knew how to type with a capital I. I love Blender. So, another very important thing you can find in here is empties. Empties are just, spots in space, and you can have different types of spots in space. Like you can have a plane axis thing, and it looks like this. Now, when you render something, it won't show this empty because it is an empty. But if you duplicate that and take it there, it is an empty. But you can then use these to place other stuff in your in your scene. And it's very easy to snap the cursor to the selected thing, which would be here. I'll snap there, cursor to selected. And if I now place something like a new mesh, like a new sphere, it will appear snap on top of the empty there. Or I can select this empty here, snap the cursor to it, select this ball, and then snap the ball to the cursor. So empties are very useful for placing things in your world. Just out of idle curiosity, I will make materials for these so that we see a bit of color here. Base color for that, and a base color for that, base color for this. Looks more interesting if there's color. And base color for that. And even for this, let's make it a bright yellow. Okay, it's much more interesting. So there's also another set of stuff, like you have lights, you have different lights. I'll take out the lights from the scene now. I'll delete this. And now there's no light in the scene. It looks rather bland. So let me add light a point lamp. It looks like this, and I turn it up to 1000 watts or so. Yep. This is how a point lamp looks. I'll lose that, and I will add a spot lamp. And I will turn it up again to 1000 watts. So you can use this as a spotlight for your objects. Looks rather nice. You can also adjust all kinds of things in here, like how big it is and what's the cone size, all kinds of things. So I'll take that out again, and now I will add an area light. And turn it up to 1000 watts. So it has no direction, but you can still rotate it. It's basically a plane that emits light. Now the last lamp type is a sun lamp, and this is of course rather big, and it illuminates everything at one go. So, and as you can see, the shadows are different now because all of the light is coming from one direction, and the lamp is like it's as far away as the sun is. So all the light rays are parallel. That's why they have the same kind of shadows, all of them. They don't spread out like they used to with the other lamps. You can add cameras if you need more than one camera. For sometimes you want to do animation with two cameras. That works fine. And then you have a lot of stuff that you can add. if you go and turn on extra objects, you go to Edit, you go to Preferences, you go to Add-ons, and you go to Add Mesh. And in here, you have Bolt Factory, which gives you all kinds of bolts. You have extra objects, and you even have Archimesh. And Archimesh, when you turn it on, and you now go to Add Stuff, in the mesh list, you have Archimesh. You can insert a room, and you can insert all kinds of things. You can also almost crash Blender with it. I'll take it off. It's running. Add another Archimesh thingy like stairs. They look like that. So there's all kinds of different things that you have in the Archimesh set of things. And the bolt factory looks like this. Bolt, and in here you can select different types of bolts, like an M3 bolt, and you might want to have it a nut. Looks like that. And you can adjust all of these different objects or different properties with that. And the last thing I wanted to show you was the gears, because you can have gears here. A gear mesh. It looks like this. And again, you can do whatever you like with the gear. You can have different types of gears. So if you want to print stuff that has gears, you can actually make them in Blender and just print them out of there. And as you can see, all of these are here in the list. And since I have two empties, one of them is called empty 001. And this is another thing. Whenever you add anything to your scene, always double click on this and change the name to something else, like left empty or something like that. Left empty, and the other one would be right empty, just so that you know what it is that you are handling at any given time. Yes, this concludes the business of adding objects into your scene.